The Pro Show is brought to you by Rockin' Media and our proprietary Flash HDR photo process, providing you with the best, most realistic photos of your property. See the difference at rockinmedia.com. Well, here we are again with Nancy and Kristen. And Kristen is from KB Real Estate and Lending. Kristen Boano. Good morning, Kristen. How are you?
Rick, I am so good. How are you?
I'm doing good. And we also have Nancy Alexander from Smart Mortgage Services. Hi, Nancy.
Good morning, sir.
Hey,
Good morning, Kristen.
It's great. Great having you guys on again. So I want to get down into some ideas for different people to think about as far as how do they get into their dream house. And maybe their dream house and their picture needs to be what their dream house is, may need to change based on what I can afford. Because obviously, as we hover between 6.75% and 7%, some people's expectations need to be managed, I'm guessing, in this new world. Because it doesn't seem like, at least around here, we're seeing price decreases, but not relative to the rate increases. How about in California, Kristen?
Yeah, you're correct. Very, very, very similar. You have those folks that want to, you hear it all the time, oh, the rates, and oh, we're going to wait till they come down. Well, it doesn't really work that way because, as we know, Nancy and I have chatted about this, rates go down and prices go up, and you're in that same, you're chasing the market. So, it's a little, if we all had a crystal ball, we all would be in a great position, but we just move through it and keep building that real estate wealth.
What I never understand in this world is why when rates go down, prices go up, but when rates go up, prices don't go down nearly as fast. And I think it's probably because everybody fell in love with that Zillow Z estimate back when rates were high. And so I think that's probably the getting real part of it in this market today. And a lot of sellers are starting to get there, but a lot of them are still not getting there. But let me take an example. Let's just say my wife and I combined make about $100,000. Okay. And I am wondering what I should do and how much I should even start looking at, because it doesn't do me any good to go look for $1 million home if I qualify for 500 or 450 or 370. And I also have my own preferences about how much I want to spend. So let's talk a strategy around that one, and maybe then we'll come up with a different one and see whether we can get some people some ideas as to how they can get there. So Nancy, do you want to start?
I think you started it off the way a lot of clients started off, is to say, this is the income I make. But what we forget is that we have a ratio that we're playing with, or a calculation we're playing with, which is called debt to income.
Okay.
So if you have zero debt, right? No car payments, no credit cards, no student loans, nothing on the revolving side.
So if you're not an American, is what you're saying.
Right. I mean, then we can look at your 100,000 and say, okay, you've got 100,000.
Okay.
And then we take, right. And then Kristen, I play with it and say, okay, let's break 100,000 down into, what is it monthly? So what is that? About 68? What, 6,800 a month?
83.33, I think, is what it works out.
I think you're right. 12 divided 83.33. So if we say we have no debt, cut that in half.
Okay.
Take 2 divide by, right? You're down to 41.66. So your overall payment can't exceed your all-in payment, right? Kristen and I speak a different language, like the way an engineer would. A physician would. You, right, in the photo field, Rick, do. We all speak this different language, but all in means principal, interest, taxes, insurance, HOA, if in fact it's included in that particular property, right? That's all in. So you couldn't exceed 41.66 all in a payment if you wanted to stay to where your debt to income is approvable. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you have to keep it under 50%, but I'm probably a little more conservative. So I want it to be more like 35% because I want to have a life. So how does that work? So now instead of 41, I'm at 36 or 35 just to make myself comfortable. But maybe, okay, so you talk me out of why I shouldn't be conservative.
Well, it's not about being conservative, right, Kristen? It's about what are they, because we're looking at 50% gross income. Why
Correct.
do we only go to 50%? Well, because you still have another 50% over here, right, for all those things that don't come on a credit report. Food,
Yeah.
parking, grocery, I mean, gas, insurance.
Yeah. How about income taxes? That's not part, because that's the real problem is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, it used to be like 30%. The world used to be 30%.
You're right.
Because 30% of gross, because people pay usually 25 to 30% in taxes. That leaves you, what, 20% to live on?
Yeah. Those ramen noodles come back into my mind, Kristen. I don't know about yours.
Well, it's managing expectations. That's the other thing. And then you hear Nancy and I discuss, we use the word strategy quite a bit. And I always like to say, well, what's the play? What's the play? So, I mean, that's where the conversation turns to, okay, that's great, Rick. You may qualify for this $4,100 a month payment. I get it. You only want, not only, but you would prefer $3,600.
Right.
Let's see what that buys in your particular area. You say you want to live in this area.
Right.
If this is what you want, this is what you can buy. You can afford this, but this is what you can, what you can buy. And then it's managing the expectations. And then like Nancy says, I always ask, what's the play? Like, what's the plan? Are you going to live here forever? Well, no, this is my first home. Why would I do that? Or what, is this your last home? That's part of when we say strategy, that's what we're talking about. Does it make sense to go to that higher payment? Maybe you want to go to that higher payment because you have to have that school district or you have to have that certain area, whatever that looks like.
Well, and Kristen, I think you're spot on in the sense of the strategy of saying, because we're always assuming or talking 30-year fixed.
Right.
But I have a lot of younger people, which I think is super cool, that's looking at the 15-year fixed, 20-year fixed, right?
Yep.
You can go in on a 25-year fixed. You don't have to be regimented like we always have been in the past of 10, 15, 20, 25. My God, you can do an 18, you can do a 13 if you want to for your amortization.
Right.
And I think it's like anything. It's like, what are you willing to forfeit for what do you think you're getting? What's the expectation of what you're getting? Right.
Similar to that. Remember when you bought your first car, Rick? And you were like, I only want to spend $150 a month or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And you knew that you wanted, a Porsche, let's say, but you knew the $150 a month wasn't going to cover the Porsche. So it's very similar with real estate.
Right.
I mean, the beer budget, champagne dreams, the whole, that whole adage. But to Nancy's point, yeah, we are seeing, how many people live in their house for 30 years and never refinance or, whatever that looks like. So it is interesting to see that shift, especially with the younger borrowers. Well, I want to own my property. I don't want to have a payment in X years or whatever that looks like. So maybe they saw the family struggle in the 07, 08, 09, drama that we had going on then. So yeah, it's definitely interesting. And, like Nancy and I have said, there's so many different ways you can go.
And it's, we all know this is why we do this. Real estate is a game of gaining wealth. It's not, that I'm owning this house because I can paint that wall purple. Yes, you can paint that wall purple if that's what your desire is, right? But it's really the rate of return you're getting on that investment. And Rick, you and I were talking about this the other day, and I saw a chart yesterday It went back, why 83 years, you guys? I don't quite know, but for some reason the chart picked 83 years and was showing the revenue gain every year, 36%, 52%, 69%. A couple of years in there, it was, 2%.
Right.
Percent rate of return. And when we say rate of return, it's no different than you investing in your 401k. You have to, or you should be, we all should be managing it just like we're managing our real estate. Like Kristen is saying, if you're getting in the loan today and you're taking a 30-year fix because your payment is less on a 30, does that mean you sit in a 30-year fix forever?
No.
It's like, well, no, you've got the ability to refinance. And same with a car, right? How many people do I see with these very expensive cars? You have the ability to refinance, manage your money to work for you. But the real estate market, it is so beneficial because it's finite.
So, yeah, Kristen, are you then encouraging people to maybe change where they're interested in living so they can, if I want to be a little more conservative in how much I spend, then they obviously have to go to a different location. They can't be on the beach,
Right.
in California. They might have to be a mile and a half off the beach, right? Or 2 miles or 10 miles off the beach, but they're getting their house or 30 miles off the beach to reach what they want.
Yeah, no, exactly. And what I'm seeing, at least in my Southern California market with a lot of my borrowers, is there's definitely this shift of, 20 years ago, it was okay to commute 30 minutes, 45 minutes. And what I'm seeing is less give with that in at least my market, because the areas have exploded, the traffic's stupid, gas is stupid, so you don't really have that anymore. Some people are just going to rent, which we try to discourage it. We try to again, think of this as a 2-year play. Think of this as a 3-year play, just to get something, build the wealth, and then after 2 years, rent it. And now go back and live at the beach, or go back in the mountains, or whatever that looks like. But it's interesting. While you still have this buyer profile of the younger generation, X or Y or Z or O, I don't even know. I don't know. Yeah. However, there's a mind shift of, well, my mom and dad commuted for, so long, and, it's just the workforce is different now too. So you do have that ability to change that up a little bit, but you are seeing that.
Do you think that it's attitude or altitude, so to speak? So is it attitude of, I don't want to do this more than it's that I can't do this financially?
I think it's a little of both. I really do. I think it's a little of both. There's definitely, when you start talking about adding, an hour, 2 hours to your commute, and you've got young family or whatever, you don't want to mess with that. And you're definitely seeing, as well as I do, kids are going everywhere with their parents. My kids got a babysitter. I got babysitters for my kids, but kids definitely are going everywhere with their family. So you're seeing that shift, I think. But the I don't want to say the serious ones, but I keep going back to my daughter, who's actually in Colorado, and she's a teacher, and my son-in-law works for a manufacturing company. And we had this conversation 2 years ago when rates were, still, not where they are today. And they would not do a 45-minute drive to get to a space that was affordable. And I said, okay, well, this is your buying position. What can you, where are you at in this space? Well, we're not going to live there. We're not going to live there. So I don't know. I think everyone's different. Everyone's got a plan, and it's our job to try to make that work for each person's situation and just manage that expectation.
It seems like one option that they might have too is, if they're willing to rent, then they're not necessarily willing to have neighbors close by. So maybe you buy and get a house that has a rentable space in it to help offset your cost as well. And, it doesn't necessarily help you buy it, because unless it's already got a renter in there, that right, Nancy or Kristen, that you have to have that income provable, that property you're buying has that ability to help, as income potential as part of it. Or
I mean, it's a thought process. I just wonder, I see more that it's when we see the numbers that we say this is what is you can afford. And more often than not, the client says that's great, but I don't want to afford that. And so that you say you can go up to, let's say, 600,000 for a purchase price, but that 600,000 brings a payment of $4,200 all in.
Okay.
And they say, again, where we started this, I don't want to exceed 3,200. And it's like, okay, all right. So is it a transformation of understanding or changing the narrative to understand the wealth position that real estate gives you? And so I had a client the other day, you guys, that it's a great rule of thumb. And Kristen, you and I have talked about this, that, take your interest rate, you guys. So let's just make this an easy calculation. Your interest rate is 7%.
Okay.
For every 100 first of all, when you write an interest rate, you write it in 4 decimals. And that's important to remember this equation, which is a rule of thumb, right? So if you write 7% out, we say it in a percentage, but we write it in decimal.
Okay.
Right? 7.000. Right? That's 4 decimals. So in turn, 7.000 for every 100,000 you owe, move your decimal 2 places over to the right.
Okay.
Right? So for every 100,000, your payment is $700.
Okay.
Let's say the interest rate.
So I want $100,000 house.
No,
So my payments are only $700. That's
no, I'm talking loan amount. But if somebody is trying to calculate,
right, I know
what they can afford,
right,
then say if you owe $300,000 on your $500,000 house because you have $200,000 to put down,
right,
your rate is 7%.
Right.
Right, you owe 300. 3 times 7 is 21.
Right.
Your payment, your principal and interest payments, 2,100. Does that begin to change their narrative, their thinking of saying, okay, maybe I do want to live in this particular place, Kristen, and I'm willing to forfeit the car that I'm driving right now, the $700 payment. And I'm willing to go down to a $300 payment and drive a different type of vehicle because I really do want to live in this particular neighborhood. So if you can calculate your own numbers, can you begin to change your own narrative? I guess that's my drill.
What do you think, Kristen?
I told either one of you, I can tell.
Yeah. No, I feel like, we need a whiteboard.
Yeah, I mean, the good news is it's pretty easy, and especially at 7%, because you just, 700 times 3 is 2,100. Then you add in whatever 500 for
taxes,
insurance,
HOA if you got it.
Right, if you're lucky.
And then that's where the conversation comes into. Okay, if that's well, how can I improve that buying position? Do I put more money down? How do I change my loan amount? Do I ask the seller to do? We talked about the 2-1 buy down a couple weeks ago. Do I ask the seller to help pay for that? And what does that look like? That's part of that, that strategy. Do I, even if I had the extra money for a down payment, if I know I'm only going to be here, I deal a lot, we have a lot, well, you guys too, the military, your military kids, active duty, they're only in a place for 2 years, typically, depending on what their situation is. So, okay, do I put more down? Do I, so that's the whole, when we say play and strategy, that's what Nancy's talking about also, is what does that look like? And okay, so I suck it up for a few years and I drive the $300 a month car but in the meantime, I'm creating this real estate wealth that I'll be able to buy the $500 car a month later, not today.
Well, and Kristen, again, if you take that same equation of 100,000 interest rate, do the same for 10,000. Move your decimal place one place over to the right instead of two, and your 7% turns into $70 for every 10,000. So then you're looking at a client and saying, okay, if we're only talking about 30,000 or 50,000 or whatever that number is, it's like, is it better to keep it in pocket and have $70 more on your payment for a $10,000 wash? Right? To hold the 10 grand rather than invest the 10,000 in the real estate to drop that payment by, I mean, that's an amazing what is that?
Yeah.
It's so different that in the sense that you think 10,000 in my mind should buy a hell of a lot more than $70 difference in the payment.
Yeah.
Right. Because you're using somebody else's money. You're using somebody else's money to build your
Not
wealth.
necessarily. You're using your own money.
Oh, that's true. You're saving.
You're saying, am I going to put 10,000 more down on a down payment? Is that going to change my payment enough, Kristen, that I'm going to feel comfortable with my affordability with this? But that 10,000, if you're using a 7% interest rate, is only going to change your payment by $70.
Right.
If the rate's 6.5, it's $65. If the rate is 6%, it's $60. Move your decimal place one place over to the right. That now 6% turns into $60 if you're doing it for 10,000, 600 if you're doing it for 100,000. So begin to calculate your own numbers so you can create the narrative, so you can go to Kristen or you can go to me as a lender, realtor, or Kristen, I always say, is she holds two pockets. and you know, but be able to say, here's what I've been playing with. Where am I? What am I missing? Where am I off? And how do I bring these puzzle pieces together? Hence the play strategy.
Right. And with that being said, if I am going to, let's say, just pay that, or let's say I'm going to jump a little bit to, to maybe the rate buy down, and I am going to save the 60. And if I'm only going to be in the house for 2 years, now I'm going to have to do the math of, okay, 60 times, if it's 60 a month times 12, but I'm only going to be in the house this long, like where does that sit? Or, okay, to the 100 grand, am I going to, will I see that appreciation in my real estate, or do I go throw it, in a CD or investment or whatever, and see where my best return's going to be? So again,
it all comes into play.
It all comes into play, and I think we get so caught up in, I'm going to buy a house. I'm going to buy a house. Oh, what's the rate? Oh, what's this? Oh, that's a great house. Oh, let's go look at this house, Kristen. Oh, I want to put an offer in on this one. Okay, let's do this. And next thing you know, you're just like, whoa. Slow your roll. Like, let's back it up a little bit.
Yeah. Do you guys ever?
It's fun. I mean, it's a great, God bless America. It's American dream. We want to do this, but take the time just to, I'm going to steal something from, Mel Robbins. It's that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Just
breathe.
Just breathe. Let's just, let's back it up. Let's look at what makes sense for your situation.
Are you guys kind of a hammer and nail thing? Everything's a nail because you're a hammer? Or do people walk in and go, it makes more sense for you to rent at this point? Do you ever get to that stage?
No.
I don't know that I would ever say, and if you're renting, if you only want to be in the place 2 years, and with fees just on real estate fees alone, you've got 6%, that you're going to be paying when you go to sell. Doesn't it make sometimes more sense just to rent it? Obviously, you don't know. That's the real problem, I guess, is the question is you don't know whether you're going to be in that house for 2 years or that space for 2 years, and then it turns into 10.
I think it's a good question, but go back. Kristen, when did you buy your first piece of real estate?
I'm aging myself. In 1998, in Temecula, California, for $198,000, it was 2,700 square feet.
Okay.
Okay.
And when you bought it, it was X, and when you sold it, it was Y. Do you remember, just in round numbers, what that equity gain was? Was it double the price you paid for it when you sold it? Was it more than double? Was it?
It was well, and for me at the time, it was the forever house. You know, you raise the kids. I mean, it was a 25-year play. So, and we dipped. Obviously, it was during, you went up, you went down, you went up, you went down, and it was a triple. Yeah, it was probably a triple.
So
Yeah.
I bought my first house, I believe it was 88 for 74,000. 74,005, if I remember correctly, a little 1,200 square foot brick ranch. And I sold it 4 years later and doubled my money on it. So I got to live in it. I got to have fun with it. I got to paint that wall, whatever color I wanted to paint it. But more importantly, I got to double my money on it. So, Rick, when you say,
Well, and I did the same thing. I started out at 79.5 in the late 80s. 2 years later, we decided to move, and mine was already up to 110. So, yes, and you never know, that, and of course that's the risk reward thing, because we've all lived through '08 when it didn't always go up. And if I had wanted to move and I bought in '06 and then wanted to move, I might have been upside down on it as well. So, that it's not always it's a long term, it's upward trend. Correct, is what we've always seen, is that over the course of a 20-year period, I don't think we've ever had a period where it was down. I mean, in any market. But in a 2-year period, you could have it where you're down in that.
Well, and that again, that you go back to the strategy, because you go back to saying, okay, does it make sense for the veteran to buy the house if they're only staying in it for 2 years? Well, it depends on the rate of return that the market is giving you in that next 24 months. What did it give you in the past 24 months if the veteran goes in at 0% down, right? They're buying at, I don't know, 500,000, right? In 2 years, is there a possibility, depending on, and again, it's location, 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 right? Where are you buying it? What are you buying? Are you going to get 100,000 in revenue in a 2-year window? Well, I don't know. It depends on what the condition of that house is when you're buying it, and what sweat equity you're willing to put into it to improve. You can't change its location. You can change its cosmetics.
Unless you move the house. Put it on a trailer.
I guess rent the trailer, move.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh my God!
But I mean, you could move it, but it's a lot of work depending on the size of the house. Kristen, do you still advise people that they should buy the smallest house in the neighborhood? Is that still a rule of thumb?
Yeah, kind of, sort of.
Because things tend to. Okay, so maybe it was a Rick's rule of thumb that I never even thought about. Because I always heard that if you bought the smallest house in the neighborhood, you had the greatest chance for appreciation, because the bigger houses are going to drag you up.
Buy the crappiest house in the neighborhood.
Oh,
yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Okay.
You put
flip
the sweat
it.
equity.
Make it
You buy
pretty.
the house that doesn't have the yard. You buy the house that maybe the door is hanging off the frame, because you're like, I can understand that this is an asset, and I can put my sweat equity into it, and I can pull this thing up in equity by 30,000 just by putting
fixing
some
it up.
grease.
Fixing it up.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys are still gonna. I mean, your 3-bedroom house versus your 6-bedroom house is
Right.
not gonna appreciate as much, because your appraiser is gonna come in and dictate that value as well. So.
Right.
I advise people to buy a property that makes sense for what their needs are at the time that they need it. And we just go from there.
I think it also goes back to what Nancy was saying in expectations. There are certain people that want the new house for their very first house, and can't afford the first house. And maybe having the fixer-upper is a better strategy for them, because then they
love the fixer-upper.
I know,
Because
but we're old. Okay, I'm old. I'm old.
I'm looking at Kristen shaking her head. I'm like, no, I still like the fixer-upper because I get to dream.
Yeah, you get to change it and make it yours. And it's a great strategy and there's some people who definitely have the skills. And obviously that comes into your strategy as well. If you can do it yourself, then the sweat equity pays for it. If you have to go hire a bunch of people to do that same work, maybe it doesn't make sense. And maybe the solution is for them to find out whether they do or do not have those skills. And maybe they find out they have those skills and they've never exercised that that muscle in their brain because they never had to. And so, and once they do it, they may get hooked. And I've heard lots of people doing that. And I think, Nancy, you're one of those people that gets in and you like to get in and change it and make it yours and then move again. And
I do. My mother always had this great saying, and I think, for years now, I've looked back and said she was right, that it's like you move into a place and you just sit with it for the first 6 months. Because typically, even when I'm buying it, I'm like, that wall's coming out, this deck is going off, that's going to be enlarged, that's got to be repainted, rip up that carpeting, throw it down some hardwood floors, etc. And then if you just stop and live in it for the first 6 months, it's amazing how many of those thoughts change. It's like, oh, I see why this wall sits here.
Right.
And I see why they built this way, No,
I'm design impaired, so I don't do any of that stuff.
and I love that, Kristen. God, to me, that's the part of the game that
need professionals for that shit.
Oh, that's where my art comes in. It's like, all right, come on, let's have some fun here. God, we're all different. That was another saying she would always say. Thank God.
Yeah, and there are other people who walk in and the stuff they didn't notice all of a sudden is like, why did I buy this house? Because I hate that wall being there. And that's the time when you go, well, let me move that wall because it's probably going to tick off somebody else if I go to sell.
Right.
And Nancy talks about, painting her walls, but then she gets to paint them back to neutral so Kristen can sell her house. Cause...
So, Kristen, is this why you do both? I've always said I wouldn't be a realtor because there's so much emotion. It's not my emotion. It's the other person. Kristen, oh my God, I love it. We got to write a contract. We got to hurry up and do it. We got to do it right now. And then they go under contract, right? And then you 24 hours later say, well, with luck have it, whatever statement you make, you just got yourself a house. They accepted your contract and the person freaks the out and goes, holy shit, what do you mean I'm buying a house? Why did you talk me into this? Why did you let me write this contract? And I'd be going, oh my God, what is the matter with you?
I think I think I enjoy doing both just because of the and I try to be Switzerland in all of it. And if something makes sense, I'll say, you know what, God, this checks the boxes, but maybe it, was except for price, or maybe one of the boxes wasn't checked, whatever it was. But if it feels good and it makes sense, then let's go ahead and do it. Or I've had others where, they're like, no, we, absolutely not. This doesn't work at all. I go, okay, but this is kind of what you told me to show you. But okay, let's go look at some more houses. That's what
I love. The other side of it is to go, okay, here are the numbers. The numbers don't lie. Let's
and then
and like you said, let's see what our play is.
Right.
Then we go back to the numbers.
Yeah.
And Kristen, then if you start with the numbers, because you have that real estate side too, you can go, okay, given where you're at right now and what you want to spend, here's what you can afford where. So let's go. Are any of these places where you want to live. Do you want to live X? Do you want to live Y? No, I really don't. I want to be in Long Beach, or I want to be in Anaheim, or wherever. And you go, okay, well, in Anaheim, you'd have to make $100,000 more to make that play. Or maybe you need to find a house that could have a rentable space, or maybe you need, but, I think it probably helps to have you being able to look at both sides of it, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. And that's always been, my thing. I had a client, they're like, okay, this is the last house. I don't want to be near a school. I don't want to have, anyone behind me. I don't want to pay, crazy, stupid, extra taxes. I want something that was built within the last 10 years, and I want this price.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. All right. And so then we
and
go,
I want rainbows and unicorns.
Yeah. And then they send me
wait for it though.
Yeah. But then they send me the link, like, oh, did you see this one? And I said, well, this one really wasn't in the boxes, but we can go look. And then of course, oh, this is it. Let's write on this one.
Right.
And it had nothing to do. So, but from a financial standpoint, it made sense. I mean, pricing made sense. We were able to negotiate, a little bit of closing costs, buyer broker, all of that. So all of it made sense. So no real fixed, hard and fast rule. You just kind of have to go with, what's out there at the time.
And you probably have found too, most people don't know what they want.
Yeah.
They think they know what they want. I mean, we knew exactly what we wanted to pay when we bought this house. And we ended up paying 15% more than that because of the house. And it made sense. We had just paid off our other house. We wanted to take exactly that amount and put it into this and not have a mortgage payment. And we couldn't do it. And so, but we decided, okay, that really is what we want. It wasn't what we thought we want. It's what we actually did want. And I think putting down the money really tells you what you really did want.
Nancy says it's just navigating those emotions, and it's navigating a lot of different things. And it's funny because, and it's very stressful. It's stressful. What was it? Moving is top 4 stressors with death and marriage or whatever. And so, whatever it is. So
Dying.
you go through that.
Dying's a top stress, I think.
Yeah. We're evil, Nancy. We make people move for a living, damn it.
We make them make money for a living.
Yeah.
And we help them make money. You are absolutely correct.
That's, I look at it and there is not a house that I've purchased, and I buy about every 5 to 7 years. I mean, Rick, you and I have talked about this, and we're very different. Rick's like, unplanted, this is it. And I'm like, okay, I've done what I needed to do here. I've had the experience of the forest. Right now I'm sitting on 35 acres up on a mountain, and it's like, okay, I've been here 6 years. I'm almost getting a little antsy going, okay.
What's next?
Right.
What's next?
It's maybe time.
Now I'm going to get a condo downtown.
Oh my God. I think I'm going to split my throat.
But you might go to Elizabeth and get 70 acres horse property.
There has never been a property that I have bought and sold that I have not made, I'm going to say, extreme profit on. Never.
Yeah.
Never. So it's finite, you guys.
Well, and the reality is that even though we have found our home and been here 21 years, we also used the value of that home to go buy more land.
Right.
That's right.
So so in essence, we did sell it. We just didn't have to sell it because we took the value of that.
You just didn't have to move.
We didn't have to move. Exactly.
That was going back to strategy. Building real estate wealth. I'm just going to wrap it up. Strategy, build real estate wealth, and grow that investment. And you had a great strategy.
Well, we'll see. Haven't paid off the the house again. So, because we keep investing other places, and whoever they is could always still take it, if something happens, as long as you don't own it, and the bank owns it, you don't own your house. That's kind of always been the way I've been taught.
Well, you share
ownership. Yes. But you stop making that payment. They don't take half the. They don't go, well, we'll pay half.
Even ourselves, Kristen, I don't know how often you buy, but when I do my own mortgage, I think, oh my God, this is what I put my clients through. It's like, you want what piece of paper? And then you go back to go, well, you are borrowing $500,000.
Right.
You're borrowing $1.2 million. So
right.
That banker that's going into business with you just does want a few more documents.
Yep.
It's like always know that there's an opportunity to give more documentation to get that loan until you get that clear to close. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it is a partnership. There's no question it's a partnership. That the bank owns a portion, you own a portion, right? 20% down, bank owns 80%. Make sure your partner is a good one, right?
Yes. However, if you stop making your payments, it doesn't split out that way.
No, it doesn't.
No, they take 100% of it. So don't do that. Make your payments and go, well, we're in a partnership, Mr. Bank. Why are you doing this to me? So,
no.
But
that doesnent play.
That is not a good play. Don't assume that play is going to work. Forbearance is gone for now. That was a play for a while. Now people are finding that that's going away. So, or is gone. I think it's completely gone in almost everything at this point. So, I think this has been a great discussion. And what I would love to talk about on our next threesome here is maybe flip it and talk strategies in this seller for the poor sellers. And are there ways within the lending world that they can help their buyers to get there and go through that process and talk about what they should be thinking about as the world has changed. It literally has changed. And if you think it's 2022, you've been asleep, because it is not 2022, and it's hard for people to do that and get in that new mindset if you're looking to sell your home. But I think it'd be good to talk those strategies. What do you guys think?
Game on.
Sounds great. Well, if you want to get a hold of Kristen, reach out to her. She's in which states now? California. What are you licensed in?
California, Texas, Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Florida.
Wow. She's all over the South, and it's great having you on. And Nancy, where are you licensed at?
I follow a little different trajectory. I go Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, and then for some crazy reason, I jump all the way over to Hawaii.
Oh, well, good for you, because you want to go to Hawaii and make it be a tax write-off. I understand. Okay. I must meet you in person to talk about your loan docs. Because you're in Hawaii. Well, this has been awesome. If you want to get a hold of them, you've got their numbers there, and appreciate you being on. Look forward to having you back. If you want to have more of this great information, be sure to go to theproshow.com. That's theproshows.com. We have 42 different episodes out there with all different types of information, and we look forward to seeing everyone back here again next week. Thanks.